Hello, everybody. Welcome. Who here has built something with AI? Very,
Wow.
very cool.
Wow.
Awesome. We're going to have a great chat. We got some great people here to talk about that. Josh, we're going to start with you. Can I prompt an app yet?
Kind of.
Kind of. OK. So building with AI, what is changing?
Yeah, we are entering the great age of prototypes. Like mock-ups, SketchUps, PowerPoint decks, they're gone. You can actually show someone in minutes what your idea actually looks like live. That's huge. It's a game changer. The real game changer is going to be the journey from those prototypes to production, which I think is really where things get interesting.
This is really freaky. The only way I know how to build apps is with like a pen and paper. You said
Yeah.
in minutes.
Yeah, you can now describe to the computer what you want the app to behave at, or if you want to go back to pen and paper, do a little sketch of it, and the computer will spit out working code that you can run and actually see what it would be like to interact with your idea live, which is huge. And I think, given the number of hands I saw earlier, I think a lot of you have probably experienced that for yourself.
But AI can't do everything, correct?
Correct. The real challenge is going from those prototypes to something that's real, because that journey has a lot of steps. There's iteration based on user feedback, there's refining your design, there's security, there's hosting, there's scaling, and fixing all the little bits and corners. And the fact of the matter is, people using vibe coding tools and getting millions of lines of code that they don't understand and trying to build a real production app with that, they're hitting brick walls. They're getting their apps hacked. They're running into situations where the AI gets stuck on a bug and keeps on going in circles. It's pretty rough out there, actually.
So give us a little bit of a metric here. How much can AI help speed up the process of product development?
Yeah, so the real question is, do you understand what the AI is spitting out? So for experienced software engineers who read fluent code and are using a tool that spits out code, it's making you 3, 4, 5 times faster. If you don't understand what the AI is doing, you get it's almost like a sugar rush. You get this immediate burst forward, and then you stop when you hit the limitations of the tool. At Bubble, we're in the business of trying to make sure that AIs communicate in human-friendly, accessible language. We're all about how do we make sure that what AIs are building for you is something that you understand and that you can work with and live with, because I think that's the differentiator on whether AI is a game-changing, industry-defining accelerant, or whether it's a cool gimmick that shaves off sometime at the beginning but then gets you sort of down a stuck path.
Jyothi, let's come to you. So we've been talking about pretty much a person or maybe a small team building something, but the process of building a company or a product and going to market with it is vastly different. It's a vastly bigger thing in a lot of ways. And you said as we were prepping for this, I wish I had AI to help as I was going through my journey. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so for those of you that are wondering, why is there a CMO in a building with AI panel?
Very technical CMO.
Let me clarify that, right? I'm a software engineer turned product manager, turned sales and marketing leader for multi-billion-dollar businesses globally. And the reason I'm here representing DDN, the company that is in the midst of all this with NVIDIA, all of NVIDIA's supercomputers run on DDN, our company's data platform. The reason I'm here is to enable this audience on the true power of AI at scale, right? And how do you think about that? So Josh clearly articulated, from the coding perspective, building applications perspective, but you got to also look at the data layer of AI. It's a very important element, the infrastructure and the data layer, garbage in, garbage out, right? So in my world, for example, at DDN, I run everything from marketing to revenue operations to sales enablement, et cetera. And my teams are actually getting smaller. And again, this is not a ding on the team members that are there. It's mostly because my team members are getting supercharged with the tools that I use to accelerate everything that I do. For example, in product marketing, I don't have to hire 5 more people to produce the messaging because I can fine-tune it real time as something comes in, right? And if there's a new partnership we're announcing, my messaging, my storytelling is almost 90% perfect in 5 minutes of putting it into AI. So again, the core needs to be great. Your core narrative needs to be great. Your core processes need to be great. And your core people need to be great. That's not changing. It's just when you scale, you can scale it a lot more efficiently by using the tools at your disposal.
I've seen that actually. I've seen teams that are getting kind of flatter because you want people with great expertise who have like this array of helpers. And they can use that array of helpers to produce really cool stuff. And they have the human touch and angle to actually just give it that extra little, that humanness maybe, I don't know, a little, something interesting. I noticed you're wearing a Ray-Ban Oculus right now. Are you just reading your answers off the glasses?
Well, AI is giving me the answers. I'm gonna take a picture.
Are you really
guys,
here?
Right?
Are you even?
So my son asked me, I said, I'm going to be speaking to a lot of people. He said, I don't believe you. I said, I'm going to take a picture. And I just did with my glasses, right? And it may not be a perfect picture, but AI will clean it up for me. So you still need physical hardware to work perfectly. It still needs to be on my face. But AI does the cleanup for me, so I don't have to focus on this audience, and everything is there.
Pretty soon the hardware will be wetware, and then you won't even need to wear something on your face. It'll be all good. Okay, let's continue with you for a bit, Jyothi. I want to talk about orgs and instrumenting themselves for data, because you're talking about data as what we need for AI. Orgs often make a fatal error. They don't instrument themselves to capture data and then use that to grow, learn, get faster with AI at internet speed. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, data is the lifeblood of your business. Data is the lifeblood of AI. The new category that we're trying to define alongside the likes of Databricks, et cetera, is data intelligence, right? Nothing's kind of artificial and real is getting blended all together, but the commonality is the data. So what do I mean by all this? So NVIDIA is at the center of the AI solar system. They're driving this, right? We're all planets and satellites rotating around NVIDIA, that's driving this.
So humbling.
Right, it is. Like it or not, they're a $3.5 trillion company today, and their chips are driving everything, at scale. And so how do you ensure that these really expensive NVIDIA chips, whether you're consuming them through the cloud, whatever your cloud provider, whoever your cloud provider is, or you're building your own data center or data infrastructure in-house, whether you're a federal sovereign AI company or a highly regulated industry like financial services, how do you ensure that your data fabric and your AI infrastructure is ready to accelerate that data into the AI frameworks? Because otherwise, what are you going to end up doing? You're going to end up paying either your cloud provider or your infrastructure people a lot of money to keep up with all the great stuff Josh talked about, right? All these amazing applications that you build, they're data hogs, right? These vibe coding platforms, et cetera, they're all accessing, reading, and writing data. You can't even imagine how much is being written and read in real time from these applications, and they're going to charge you for it eventually, right? Today, it's like, oh, kick the tires on it. It's great. Kick the tires, build your applications. But as your applications scale, your data infrastructure really needs to be robust, and it needs to accelerate the data. It needs to saturate the GPUs. Whether it's in the cloud or on-prem, the GPUs need to be fully saturated for you to get best ROI.
Yeah, I would emphasize that AI is not replacing data infrastructure at any scale. Like, we see startups caring about having production-ready platforms to scale up on, and then as you grow towards more of an enterprise layer, you want to have like a smooth continuum as you think about how you organize data, because that really is a key competitive advantage these days.
So I pushed Josh for some metrics, like how much more efficient, how much faster can AI make you? As you're talking about the sort of the corporate organizational side of it, give me a metric of how much improvement on speed or other quality as well that you can get with AI.
I'm guessing this one's for me.
Yes, it is.
So in the world of AI, at least the last 2 years that we've been in it, at the core with NVIDIA, we're seeing 10x improvement every year. And I'm just not making that up because it's a nice round number.
It is a nice round number.
It literally has been a 10 to 12x improvement year over year on the performance with AI. Mostly, again, driven by NVIDIA's GPUs and the data fabric that surrounds it, and the cool coding platforms and application building platforms that are built on top of that. Right? It's essentially a 3-layer cake at the highest level that you've got to optimize for end-to-end. And again, it begins at the core, which is the GPU, which you guys don't control. Jensen Huang controls that. What you do control is the data layer, and you do control is the coding and the application layer. Right? You want to ensure that all 3 of them are in lockstep for you to get that 10x, 12x performance improvement for your application. Just because Jensen Huang says his GPUs are 10x faster doesn't mean anything for you at the application level unless your data and application are working hand in hand with that GPU.
Cool. You mentioned something in our prep that I want you to bring out right here, because we're not just talking about making a press release. We're not just talking about a cool image for our social media post or something like that. You're using AI to predict tsunamis and damage. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I walk around Web Summit, agentic AI is all the rage, right? We're all building agents, whether it's to fine-tune a small process, see some incremental improvement, and that's OK. But to be clear, at DDN, we're working with the likes of NVIDIA to prevent tsunamis in Europe, in Italy specifically, with Cineca. Right? We're working with Roche to accelerate drug discovery. Brand new drug discovery for rare genetic diseases takes about 10 years. Just think about that. If a child has a rare genetic disease, the child is no longer a child by the time a cure has been found. Right? That 10-year time frame has now been shrunk to a year or less. And in the next year or so, it's going to be in months and weeks. That's beautiful. That's real world AI benefit, right? And that's what we're driving. The third example I'd like to use is autonomous driving. I think all of us have either tried it or own a vehicle that does it. Again, that's at scale. Real-time data, petabytes and petabytes of data being collected by these devices as autonomous vehicles that have to be processed without charging you an arm and a leg with your cloud provider or your data infrastructure in order for you to drive safely from point A to point B. So we're driving all of these outcomes at scale today. It's not perfect, but hey, it's at least 100 times better than it was just 3 years ago.
Let's ask that question. Who here has been driven by a car? It's actually probably less than 10%. Interesting. OK, very cool. I want to shift the conversation, and Josh, we're going to come back to you, and I want to talk about people. There's all of us here in the room. We're sitting in chairs here, and we're talking about AI and the amazing, wonderful, incredible things it can do. Where are the people? And so, Josh, first question, will people be left behind?
So I think AI is going to create a lot more opportunity than it destroys. That said, to be honest, I think it's going to be easier for some people to adapt to it than others, right? And I think the biggest predictor of how easy it is to take advantage of all the opportunity it unlocks is really, are you defining yourself based on like a narrow set of skills or tools, or are you defining yourself with what I like to think of as like a founder mindset, like identifying problems, sort of back to what Jyothi was saying about like the real world, important, society-affecting problems that make a difference, and orienting yourself around having solutions to those problems. Because if you're agnostic about the path to get there and define yourself in terms of what you're trying to solve, I think AI is really just an opportunity creator. If you're tied to how things are done today and that's how you define your value, I think AI is going to create some adjustments.
Yeah, if I can add to that, right, I'm going to date myself a little bit. I started my career during the dot-com boom days. And if you remember back then, it was a lot of hype, a lot of money was made in the stock markets, et cetera.
And lost.
And then there was the bust too. But the internet changed everything. If you look at the last 25 years, the global economy essentially accelerated 100,000x because of what the internet brought to the world. AI is going through that hype phase right now. There will be a few bumps, right? There will be, a trough of disillusionment at some point where it's like, I'm really not seeing that value. So once we power through that phase, we're again going to get that next 1,000x ROI on this. So the people who adopt early, who refine, who invest early, right, and take that risk, that leap of faith, thoughtfully, are the ones that will be that 100x, 1000x company 5 to 10 years from now.
It's really interesting. I have a follow-up question for you, Josh, but really interesting you mentioned the trough of disillusionment. I think that things are happening so quickly right now on so many different fronts that there isn't going to be one trough of disillusionment for AI. We're hitting it every day. This didn't work, or that didn't work, or this isn't great, or whatever. And then tomorrow, oh, it's great, or the next month, or something like that, right? And these troughs are all overlapping. Super interesting. Okay, Josh, how can people set themselves up best for success in a world of AI? So we're talking about building product, we're talking about building apps, we're talking about building software. We have software developers in the crowd here. A lot of people said they've built something with AI. And maybe if we're not a developer, but we still want to be able to build something, how can you set yourself up best? You talked about an owner or founder mindset. Not everybody has that. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, the root of founder mindset at the end of the day is empathy, right? It's getting out there, talking to people, understanding their problems, and thinking in terms of, what can you do for them? What problems can you solve for other people? The other thing is something actually that Jyothi just touched on, which is attitude towards AI, right? Like I see a range of, AI excitement to AI hostility, and I think like there's definitely a hype cycle, right? People are, and like, personally, I'm a little bit of a hater when people are like, yeah, this is amazing. I come and go, all right, calm down. But I actually think this is a situation where even if you know for a fact that some of the hype is overblown, it's still better to lean in a little bit, because I think AI hostility, like the flip side of the hype, the like, I don't want this AI slop. I don't want this AI garbage. It's that is actually a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it keeps you from building that familiarity. And like part of the skill set is like learning how to define, AI forces you to be good at articulating what you want, right? And that's something we've seen from day one at Bubble. People working on our platform, run into like the power of our tools, and some of them are like, oh wow, I could build something what do I build, right? And I think that those repetitions of actually having to answer that question, like, if I could do anything, what would I do with it? Like, that builds the mindset that I think is really important here.
Very, very cool. Jyothi, let's take that from a company perspective. Will companies be left behind?
For sure. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, look at the Fortune 500 over the last 25 years. How many companies that were in the Fortune 500 25 years ago are still in it today? I think it's about 30 to 40%. ChatGPT can give you the correct answer. But it's a lot of companies that either went out of business or just are laggards now and have been replaced. AI is going to do the same to companies. I mean, hopefully Bubble will be one of those companies 10 years from now, right? DDN will be one of those companies 10 years from now where we're in the Fortune 500 because we embraced it early enough. We're trying to be $1 billion revenue business today, right? Thanks to all the momentum we have and the great technology built by our founders at DDN. We're a 25-year-old company. It's not an overnight success. Like Jensen Huang says at NVIDIA, he hates the fact that NVIDIA is called this overnight success. It's taken them 30 years to build something great and to lead the world here.
And he's been wearing that leather jacket for all those 30 years.
Yeah, pretty much. But it smells great, though. Having spent time with him, it does smell great. So he's got a good dry cleaner.
So the follow-up question that is, okay, not every company is going to make it. How do companies best set themselves up for success in the era of AI?
Okay, I'll go first, and maybe Josh, you can take the follow-up. Look, there's 3 layers, like I pointed out, to any infrastructure or AI infrastructure, app infrastructure, whatever you want to call it with your current situation. Start with the data, always. Because without data, none of the layers above it will work. Speak to your data engineers, your infrastructure providers within your company, your cloud providers, to understand your data residency, your data storage, your data accessibility, your data acceleration. Look at the pipelines. Look at what data fabric you're using. That should be your step 1 before you even think about building something on top of that, right? Because if you build a suboptimal data infrastructure for AI, you're putting Band-Aids on top, and that'll fall over. At some point, that'll just fall over. So step 1, data infrastructure. Step 2, embrace no-code, low-code tools, embrace AI, fail with it, take the risk. Like 20% of your development efforts need to be in a high-risk profile. It's OK to fail with that. Communicate that to your leadership, just as my team communicates it to me, saying, hey, Jyothi, 20% of my go-to-market dollars I'm spending on experimentation with these AI tools, and if I get 0 ROI from it, are you OK with that? I'm OK with that. And then a year later, we noticed that 10% off that 20% gave us a 10x ROI. And it was great. I'm like, OK, now take the money out of these other go-to-market motions and put it in here. And last but definitely not the least, build applications that will truly change the world for your customers, that will move the needle, that will accelerate drug discovery from 10 years to 1 year. That's the kind of outcome you want to drive with AI. AI should not be thought of as, I want 5% better performance, 10% better performance. Think of AI as an order of magnitude change with the application that you're building.
I love it. If I could build anything, what would I build? Which is what Josh said earlier. Josh, same question. How do companies set themselves up for success here?
Yeah, I love Jyoti's answer. I would almost challenge that 20% as being too low in terms of taking risky experimental.
That's because you're an AI tool, but yeah.
Well, it's because execution's gonna get cheaper, right?
Yes.
Like, if you can build faster and more easily, it gives you more shots on goal, and that means you should be aiming bigger with those shots on goal, because you can't stay still to be successful in today's world as a company, right? Like, moats are getting smaller. I think data, as we've touched on, is a really important moat, but like any business moat is going to be just a narrower moat because it's going to be easier to jump over using AI technologies. And that means you can't be in defensive mode as a company. You can't be locked down trying to like entrench. You have to be always asking yourself, what's the next thing? What's the next opportunity? How do you have world-transforming impact? How do you have something really valuable to create and continually innovating on sources of new value? The cool thing about AI is it's going to make everyone, whether you're the founder of a company or whether you're just working for a Fortune 500, an entrepreneur and an innovator, because it gives everyone, no matter where they sit, the opportunity to really build new things and try new things. So I'm very excited to see what that unlocks like for humanity, really.
What I love about your 20% example, and maybe we make it 40% for Josh, is
45.
45, OK, is you're acting like a VC. And you're placing bets. And whether that's with money or that's an individual with your time and your resources and your investment of what I'm interested in, what I'm looking at, you can place those bets, you can do cool stuff, and you know what? Maybe 90% of them fail, but maybe 10% of them have 10x, 100x ROI, and that's all you need. You just need one of those things to totally work. Guys, I want to thank you. This is really, really cool. I didn't know how this would go. We have somebody on a build tool. We have somebody on the enterprise side. I think it went really well. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.